The door to the living room creaked open, and a soft glow of moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting an ethereal light on the scene before me. My heart pounded in my chest as I peeked around the corner, my breath hitching at the sight that greeted me. Emily, our new babysitter, knelt on the plush carpet, her long, raven hair cascading over her shoulders like a silk waterfall. She wore a pair of tight black leggings that hugged her curves seductively, paired with a loose, white blouse that seemed almost translucent under the dim light. Her movements were slow and deliberate, as if she were lost in some private fantasy. In her hands, she held a piece of delicate fabric, a silky nightgown, perhaps, and she brought it to her face, inhaling deeply as if savoring the scent. Her eyes fluttered closed, and a soft moan escaped her lips. It was then that I noticed the small, silver object resting on the coffee table, a camcorder, its red recording light blinking steadily. My pulse quickened, and I felt a strange mix of curiosity and unease. What was Emily doing? And why was she filming herself? The question swirled in my mind as I watched her shift her position. Leaning back on her heels and extending one leg outwards, she caressed her thigh gently, her fingers tracing imaginary patterns along the smooth surface of her skin. "Oh, you're so naughty," she whispered to herself, her voice a sultry purr. I knew I should have worn something more appropriate. She reached up and tugged at the hem of her blouse, lifting it just enough to reveal the tantalizing curve of her waist. The fabric clung to her body, accentuating the gentle swell of her breasts underneath. Her nipples were hard, pressing against the material in dark, inviting peeks. Maybe I should change into something more revealing, she mused aloud, her fingers playing with the buttons on her blouse. She undid the first one, then the second, exposing a tantalizing sliver of creamy flesh. My mouth went dry as I watched her continue, each button releasing another hint of what lay beneath. Suddenly, a noise from down the hall jolted me from my trance. It was faint, just the sound of shuffling feet and a whispered giggle, but it was enough to make me spin around, my heart racing. Had Emily heard me, or was someone else in the house? I crept silently towards the sound, my bare feet making no noise on the hardwood floor. As I turned the corner, I spotted our 7-year-old son, Tommy, peeking around the edge of his bedroom door. His eyes were wide, and there was a mischievous glint in them that made my stomach churn. "Mommy," he whispered urgently, beckoning me closer with a flick of his fingers. "You have to see this." I hesitated for a moment, torn between my desire to confront Emily and my need to protect Tommy from whatever was unfolding in the living room. But the look on his face, part excitement, part fear, made the decision for me. I crouched down beside him, my eyes narrowing as I tried to make sense of what he had seen. "What is it, sweetie?" I asked softly, my voice barely above a whisper. Tommy glanced back at the door, then leaned in close to me, his breath warm against my ear. "Emily, she's doing something weird. She's not wearing any clothes." My stomach lurched, and I fought the urge to rush into the living room and confront her right then and there. Instead, I took Tommy by the hand and led him down the hallway, stopping just short of the entrance to the living room. From here, we had a clear view of Emily, but she wouldn't be able to see us unless she looked directly into the hallway. As we watched, Emily continued her slow, lazy movements, her hands roaming over her body with a practiced ease. She slipped the blouse off her shoulders, letting it pull at her feet, and stood up, her naked form now fully exposed to the camera. The moonlight bathed her in a soft, silvery glow, highlighting every curve and contour of her body. "Such a naughty girl," she murmured, her fingers trailing down the length of her torso. Pausing briefly to cup her breast, she squeezed gently, eliciting a low moan from deep within her throat. "But you love it, don't you? You love watching me like this." My breath caught in my throat as I realized what she was talking about. She wasn't just performing for the camera, she was performing for someone else. Someone who was watching her through the lens, enjoying every second of her display. Tommy tugged on my arm, his eyes wide with uncertainty. "Mommy, what's she doing?" I didn't have an answer for him. All I could do was watch, my mind reeling with questions and doubts. Who was Emily really? And why was she doing this in our home? The thought made my blood run cold, and I tightened my grip on Tommy's hand, determined to get to the bottom of this mystery. "Stay here," I whispered to him, giving his hand a reassuring squeeze. "I'm going to check something out." Tommy nodded, his eyes still fixed on Emily, who was now sliding one hand down the front of her leggings, her fingers disappearing beneath the fabric. She moaned again, louder this time, and I felt a surge of anger rise within me. How dare she use our home, our family, as a backdrop for her sordid little show? As I took a step closer to the living room, Emily's head snapped up, her eyes locking onto mine with a mixture of surprise and defiance. For a moment, neither of us moved, the air between us thick with tension. "Who are you talking to?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Emily's lips curved into a seductive smile, and she leaned forward, her hands still hidden beneath the folds of her leggings. "Oh, just myself," she purred, "and maybe a few other special friends." Before I could respond, she let out a gasp, her body arching towards the camera as her fingers worked their magic. The sight of her writhing in pleasure made my stomach churn, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. How had we been so blind? How had we missed the signs? "Emily," I said through clenched teeth, "what the hell are you doing?" Her eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw something flicker in their depths. Fear, perhaps? Regret? But then it was gone, replaced once again by that infuriatingly confident smirk. "Just having a little fun," she replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Isn't that what everyone wants?" Before I could retort, Tommy let out a quiet sob from behind me. The sound cut through the haze of anger and confusion like a knife, and I whirled around, pulling him into my arms. He buried his face against my chest, his small frame trembling with fear and confusion. "Everything's going to be okay," I whispered to him, though I wasn't entirely sure it was true. "We're going to figure this out. I promise." But as I turned back to face Emily, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get a lot more complicated.